Picture a Tuesday morning. You're already behind. Your phone's been going since 6 a.m. Your cortisol is up before you've even had coffee. And the city outside sounds like a machine that never turns off. Traffic, notifications, construction, the low electrical hum of everything running at once. Your nervous system's been treating all of it as a threat signal. Quietly, all day, every day. Now someone in a yoga studio 2 floors up takes a breath, opens their mouth, and holds a single sound. Not a word, not a melody, just Om. And here's the question that actually matters. Is there real physics behind why that sound does something to your body? Or is this just the world's most ancient placebo? Most people assume it's the latter. A spiritual thing, a vibe thing, something for people who burn incense and own too many crystals. But the mechanism is real, and it starts somewhere almost nobody expects. Inside your cells, before your brain has even decided what it thinks about the sound. Sound isn't just something you hear. That's the first thing to get straight. Sound is a mechanical wave, pressure moving through a medium. When it hits your body, it doesn't stop at your eardrums. It travels through tissue, through fluid, through bone. Your whole body is the instrument, not just your ears. And your cells are built to notice. There's a class of proteins in your cell membranes called mechanosensitive channels. Piezoproteins are among the most studied, and their entire job is to respond to physical pressure. Stretch the membrane, compress it, vibrate it at the right frequency, and these channels open. Calcium floods in, downstream signaling cascades fire. Gene expression shifts. The cell does something different than it was doing 10 seconds ago. None of that requires your brain to process the sound as music or meaning. It's happening at the level of physics and chemistry, automatically, because your cells are mechanical structures living in a mechanical world. Low-frequency vibrations in the audible range, roughly 40 to 300 hertz, have been shown in lab settings to alter how cells migrate, how they organize their internal scaffolding, and which genes they turn on or off. Fibroblasts, the cells involved in wound repair, move differently under sound exposure. Neuronal cells show changed growth patterns. The effects aren't random either. They're frequency dependent, meaning different frequencies produce different outcomes. Your body isn't just passively absorbing sound. It's responding to it with specificity. Then there's the bone and collagen piece, which is genuinely strange when you first hear it. Bone is piezoelectric, meaning when you mechanically deform it, bend it, compress it, send a sound wave through it, it generates a small electrical charge. Collagen, which makes up a massive portion of your connective tissue, does the same thing. So when sound travels through your body, it's not just moving molecules around. It's generating tiny electrical signals inside your skeleton and soft tissue. This isn't a fringe idea. It's the same underlying principle behind clinical ultrasound used in physical therapy and bone healing. The body converts acoustic pressure into electrical information, and the cells respond to that information. So before Om even enters the picture, you need to understand this. Your body is already wired, literally, electrically, to respond to sound as a physical force. The brain's interpretation comes after. The cellular response is already underway. Om isn't a pure tone. That's important to say up front, because a lot of the wellness content around it treats it like a single magic frequency you need to hit. It isn't. When you chant Om, you're producing a complex vocalization, a fundamental frequency somewhere between 100 and 300 hertz depending on your voice, layered with rich harmonics that shift as your mouth moves through the A, U, and M sounds. It's acoustically dense, and that matters. What also matters is where the vibration goes. When you chant out loud, the sound doesn't just leave through your mouth and travel across the room. It conducts through your jaw, your skull, your chest cavity. You become a resonating chamber. Anyone who's chanted and felt that hum in their face and sternum knows exactly what this means physically, even if they've never thought about the mechanism. The mm at the end, that sustained nasal hum, is where things get neurologically interesting. That vibration concentrates near your ears and face, and it physically stimulates a branch of the vagus nerve called the auricular branch, which runs just under the skin in that region. The vagus nerve is the longest cranial nerve in your body, running from your brainstem all the way down through your heart and gut. It's the main line of your parasympathetic nervous system, the system responsible for rest, repair, and digestion, everything the opposite of fight or flight. Stimulate it, and things change fast. fMRI studies on Om chanting show decreased activity in the amygdala, the hippocampus, and the anterior cingulate cortex. The same deactivation pattern you see with clinical vagus nerve stimulation, the kind doctors use electrically to treat epilepsy and depression. That's not a coincidence. It's the same pathway, triggered by a different input. The measurable downstream effects are consistent across multiple studies. Heart rate drops, blood pressure follows, HRV increases within minutes, and EEG recordings show a shift toward alpha wave dominance. The brain state associated with calm, awake focus, not sedation, not sleep, the state where your nervous system stops burning energy on threat detection and starts spending it on something else. And here's where the wellness industry gets it wrong. The 136.1 Hz cosmic Om that circulates endlessly in sound healing spaces has no controlled trial data behind it. Neither does the 432 Hz tuning debate. The frequency value itself isn't what drives the research results. It's the full package, the breath, the vibration, the repetition, and the vagal engagement that does the work. One session of Om chanting shifts your physiology for minutes. Do it every day for months, and something more structural starts to happen. One study followed a group of elderly women with hypertension through 6 months of daily Om chanting. At the end, they showed measurable drops in depression, anxiety, stress scores, and blood pressure. These weren't subjective reports. They were tracked biomarkers moving in a consistent direction over time. That's not a placebo curve. Placebo effects tend to flatten and fade. These didn't. What's happening underneath is a kind of nervous system conditioning. Every time you chant and your body drops into parasympathetic mode, you're practicing that transition. The pathway gets more efficient. Over weeks, the shift becomes faster, more automatic, easier to access without effort. Your baseline changes, not just your response to a single session. That's the difference between a drug that works while it's in your system and a practice that gradually rewires your default state. The brainwave data backs this up. Regular chanting is associated with sustained increases in alpha wave activity, the signature of relaxed alertness, reduced mind wandering, better sustained attention. But there's also a delta wave component that shows up with consistent practice over time. Delta is the territory of deep sleep and physical restoration. If chanting is nudging that pattern during waking hours too, it may partly explain why regular practitioners report better sleep quality, not just better daytime calm. There's also a mitochondrial angle worth being honest about. Mitochondria are exquisitely sensitive to the body's stress state. Chronic sympathetic activation, the kind that comes from years of high cortisol urban living, increases oxidative stress inside cells and degrades mitochondrial efficiency. The logic follows. If Om practice meaningfully reduces that chronic stress load, it creates better internal conditions for mitochondrial function. But to be clear, no study has yet measured mitochondrial output directly before and after Om chanting. The connection is plausible and biologically coherent. It just hasn't been closed experimentally. That gap matters, and it's worth naming. What has been studied more broadly is vibroacoustic therapy, the clinical cousin of what Om chanting produces. Trials across different populations show pain reduction, improved autonomic balance, and functional recovery outcomes. Om sits inside the same mechanistic family. Low-frequency vibration conducted through the body, engaging the same cellular and neural pathways. The research base for vibroacoustic therapy is still early, but it's growing, and it points consistently in the same direction. Then there's the group dimension. Chanting together does something individual practice doesn't fully replicate. Shared breath rhythm, acoustic entrainment between voices, and the social bonding that comes from synchronized movement and sound all compound the physiological picture. These aren't soft effects. Social synchrony and belonging have their own measurable autonomic signatures. Group chanting stacks them on top of the vagal and respiratory benefits already in play. The honest frame for all of this. Om doesn't heal the way a drug heals. It doesn't target a receptor, block a pathway, or correct a deficiency. What it does is create conditions where your nervous system can stop running emergency protocols and start doing the maintenance work it's always postponed. That's not a small thing. For someone spending 8 to 12 hours a day in a high stimulation environment, 5 to 10 minutes of daily chanting shifts real, measurable biomarkers, not through mysticism, but through mechanobiology, breath regulation, and vagal tone working as a system. Same city, same noise. But now you know what's actually happening inside the body when that sound cuts through. It's not faith, it's physics. Low-frequency vibration, a nerve that runs the length of your torso, and cells that were always listening. If this kind of breakdown is what you're here for, subscribe. There's more where this came from.